Welcome, everyone, to Inside the Mediation Room. Wow. Wow. Yeah, Woody.
Ready?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Brace yourselves, everyone. We are inside the mediation room with Forrest Woody Mosten and Susan Guthrie. Oh my goodness, where do I even begin? What am I? I'm emotional right now is what I am. Honestly, if I'm going to be honest, that's what I'm feeling. Woody Mosten is a living legend, a leading divorce and family mediator for over 40 years, the father of unbundled legal services. He has authored book after book after book, including one of my all-time favorites and a book that has shaped my career and Karen's career, the Mediation Career Guide. He has been honored by just about every dispute resolution organization around the world with clout, and truly one of the most beloved mediation trainers of all time. Deep breath for me. Woody Mosten is here. And I mean, if that's not enough, Susan Guthrie. Susan Guthrie truly today, one of, and I believe you can count them on one hand, the leading experts in online mediation in the world. Susan, what it must feel like to be described that way, and it's true, a champion of online mediation well before the pandemic. Her Learn to Mediate Online program, way ahead of its time. Her Divorce and Beyond podcast, what an unbelievable, massive success. An active leader in the field at the ABA. She's been on every TV show, every podcast. I mean, my hand got tired just scrolling the Mosten Guthrie website. And that's what Susan and Woody are up to nowadays. They have teamed up and formed the Mosten Guthrie Academy for Mediation and Collaborative Training. You've got to visit the website. It is incredible. The trainings offered, unlike anywhere in the world, a 40-hour divorce and family mediation training, advanced training, advanced issues in technology, Gesundheit. Bill Eddy trains at Mosten Guthrie. You've got co-parenting specialties. You've got training for trainers. Oh, Karen and I need to make an appointment. You've got training for trainers. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. Karen, I know we've got this question that you and I, it just kept us up at night. We need to start with this question. Where do we begin? Where do we begin, Karen?
Woody and Susan, this has been a tradition so far. We need to know, what is your favorite childhood cereal? In no particular order. Susan, would you like to chime in?
I actually don't like cereal. I was the kid who never ever ate cereal. I am a pancake fan. You can give me pancakes in any iteration and I will eat them morning, noon, and night, but I never liked cereal.
See, Susan, even in the cereal world, you're a trailblazer.
Yeah, I had to go my own way.
Okay, Woody, drum roll.
All right. Okay, so I used to be a Little League baseball player, and one time I got 3 hits in a game because that morning I'd had Wheaties. So I ate Wheaties for about 10 years and never got 3 hits again. But I ate my Wheaties, and recently shifted from Wheaties to cornflakes because of trying to be gluten-free. So I'm now a cornflakes guy.
Okay,
Oh,
so cornflakes has made you the mediator champion. Not Wheaties. Okay, good to know.
Wheaties. Wow, wow, wow. I mean, I hope Wheaties is not listening. But the Kellogg's people are going to be thrilled to get Woody's endorsement.
Battle Creek. Very
Well,
exciting.
I don't know if you all remember, but to be on a Wheaties box was like the high end of being an icon, and none of us are in that world. So I don't think any of us, maybe Jim Malamed would be on a Wheaties box, but the rest of us just eat them quietly.
We do. We eat them quietly and we aspire to be like Jim Malamed. Thank you both. Woody, Michael and I have loved your book, The Mediation Career Guide, a strategic approach to building a successful practice. We read this over a decade ago in an apartment in California, on the floor, highlighting. There's writing in the columns, and we had the honor to read it again recently. The beginning in your book really took my breath away. You said, "I've always been a dreamer. One of my boyhood dreams was that I could one day support myself and my family with a job that could help people and might stimulate me every day. Some dreams come true." For over 20 years, this was 20 years ago, I have gotten up in the morning eager to get to the office. Every aspect of my life is consistent with my core life values and strengths of my personality. Wow. So Woody, what are your core life values that you apply both inside and outside the mediation room? And what are your strengths? We'd love to hear from you. And then Susan, I would love to hear from you as well.
Aaron, if I had my way, I'd want to hear what everybody else's dreams are. So I'd love to pass it over to Susan and take it on the back end, because this ability to dream and to have hope for the people that we have a chance to touch, I think is what keeps us all going. And so, I mean, I could talk about me, but I'm much more interested in hearing what everybody else on this in this Hollywood Squares has to say. I'm not dodging, but I'll come back if you insist.
Core life values, right, Karen? What are your core values, Susan? And what do you see as your strengths inside and outside the room?
Well, I love the question, and I just want to point out what we just saw with Woody, and this is one of his magic powers, is Woody is inherently curious about everyone else. And so every time that, and what's motivating them and what their dreams are and what he can do to support that. And every training we do, every mediation he does, every conversation that he has, that's at the core of what he's doing. So if we're going to talk about core values, one of the things that I've been blessed in the past couple of years of being able to work with Woody is to see how that curiosity and desire to help others plays out with him. And it's something that I try to now emulate in my own life. So you just all saw it here in this setting. And that's another thing that Woody does. If I can talk about another of his superpowers, is he's always modeling for others. So in our trainings, he's training, but he's also modeling what you might do in a mediation room. And he's also modeling what you might do as a human being. So I don't want to let that get lost, because I think it's a very important lesson for us. And it goes to the core of what, I don't think it's universal to Woody or to me. I think human beings at our core want to help others, and we feel that we are in alignment when we are able to do that. And certainly in this profession of mediators and peacemakers, I think this is why I always say mediators are the best people. I love our mediation family throughout the world. And it's because at their core, mediators are people, and I hope I can include myself in that, who want to help other people.
You can absolutely include yourself in that, Susan. Thank you.
Woody, hearing Susan kind of carve out what she sees, at least in you, as one of your core values, curiosity. Does that at the top of your list that you think about and that you align yourself with inside and out of the room? How would you describe your values so that we can possibly think about those things a little more deeply and potentially include them on our list so that we can align with those values and be better mediators?
Oh, this is far too deep for us to give a glib answer. Let me just say, Michael, I wish we had a lot more time than we have allotted today. And so let me just say a couple of things, because I know you sent us a 22-page questionnaire of what we were going to cover in the hour. I used to enjoy training, and now that I'm with Susan, I just love it. It's become no less passionate, but with Susan and Allison Beck, who was our training director, we have a quality that I never was able to do on my own. In fact, it was Allison who took the course, the 40-hour course for me. And she said, I love the course, but oh my gosh, we got to do something about this manual and about all these, you know, I used to have a manual of 350 pages, and then it kept growing to where my wife basically said, no more. And so we had to start taking stuff out. And it was Allison and it was Susan's touch that moved up the level of our training. I'd like to talk about values for a moment that affects all of us. I could talk about any of them that are in the book, but to me, today and yesterday and Tuesday, it's empowerment and how disempowered I feel. And I feel that every woman in this country feels now that we know there's going to be a different ruling on Roe. We work in the shadow of the law. And to me, being able to give people a sense of being in control of their lives is the essence of what I try to do. And to have our Supreme Court rip out that from over 70% of the country, because I count men part of it. For every woman that makes a choice for herself, there's quite often a man who was affected by that decision and is there. And I can't even imagine where it's going to go. So while we work hard in the mediation room and try to help people make personal, the best decisions they can with as the most informed consent, to see what's happening on a policy legal aspect. I've been pretty depressed in the last few days, so I must share that. I can't. I mean, I don't think we can do a training without being very cognizant of what's happening in the Supreme Court and what's happening in Ukraine. And that's why I was just thrilled to see our friend Ken Cloak, who's just written a 37-page article about how we can learn from Ukraine. There's a lot to talk about, so I'm going to turn it over to you and to Susan, because I'd love to hear what you all have to say about this.
I just want to jump in. Goodness, empowerment tops the list of values. The idea that you have control, that you have a choice. And thank you so much for so eloquently tying it into the current events that our country is experiencing at this moment. You have a choice, you have control. How do we instill that in our clients when so many of our clients come from a dynamic where in their relationship, they didn't have control, they didn't have knowledge, they weren't empowered, they were disempowered. They didn't understand the finances potentially. They felt controlled by their partner. And yet now we come in as mediators who are, and I know you've spoken about this before, Woody, who are needing to be neutral and needing to be non-judgmental, but also needing to reality test, right? To put people into reality that actually this dynamic may have been existing for the last 10, 20, 30 years, but now you're inside the mediation room. And we need to maintain our neutrality with that other person while empowering the disempowered party when there is a power imbalance, which is usually the case. Can you both speak to that? Maybe you can start, Susan. How do we, in our way as mediators, create that delivery? We can maintain our neutrality and empower while not losing the trust of the other. Whoa, that's being a mediator, isn't it? How do we do it?
Empower, Michael, and empower and empathize with our clients.
And it's kind of the universal paradigm, right, of mediation, because we're there to support both parties, but often see or feel within ourselves anyway that one of the parties needs more support in some ways than the other. And how do we do that and maintain the neutrality? And I think there's no one answer to that, much as one of the hallmarks of our trainings, at least, is the concept that what we have are skills and tools and insights to be able to pull. It's like an arrow out of a scabbard or something, but Woody has an actual tool chest, but pulling out different tools to be able to support the person in that moment. It might be something like, I call it playing the movie forward, when they're taking a position that's really untenable. Is there a way to walk them through? Well, I wonder, Woody's famous phrase, I wonder, learned it from him, and I use it in every mediation. I wonder what that would look like in a year, and let them start to think for themselves rather than introduce it to them. But the other important aspect I want to keep at the forefront also is we are the mediator in the room, but that doesn't mean we should be the only professionals in the room. And sometimes the best job we do for our clients is helping them pull together the support team and the other integrative professionals who are going to help them do that. I think a mistake for us is to believe that, or to think, or to act as if we are the sole support for our clients, when there are others who are much better suited for some of the roles that can be taken. Woody and I both work with integrative teams almost exclusively. I hardly do a mediation anymore without support professionals or team members.
What a responsibility it is, though. And I'm sure that you've had those cases where perhaps the parties can't afford legal support, outside financial support. So tremendous responsibility what do you do in those cases, Woody, where, maybe someone really and truly needs a financial advisor, and you know that, and they say, look, I just don't have the money for it. I can't do it. But you know that that's what they need. Gosh, that is a tough question. That is a tough situation to be in, but I know we've been there. What do you do then?
Well, first of all, there's no easy answer.
No.
And to be able to help people make the tough choices that face them. Quite often, they'll use their money to buy toys, right? Whether it be a Winnebago or the shiny new sound system, or decide to go on that great vacation. People make choices all the time, and they often will make good ones, and they sometimes don't. And the idea of being in the mediation room is to be right there, in my view, with them to help them make the hard choices. And yes, they might need a financial advisor so they don't keep making bad financial decisions, but they may make another bad financial decision by not putting out that money to get that help. That's their choice. And to be able to help and stay with them even when they make self-destructive and poor choices is one of the hardest things. And there are many people who take all of our trainings, because there are a lot of trainers in this room here, who can't stand it. They only can handle it when there's a following of a Solomonic power that we have. Well, we're not saints, and we're not Solomons. So quite often, people are going to make their own poor decisions, and to help them with that after, while they're making it. If it gets so bad that you watch them really hurt themselves, then I believe that letting them know that I will not continue to work with them is part of our job.
Wow.
We don't stay there forever, and that we're not expendable. We are expendable. We might be good, but we're not all that good. And so at some point, if we as a person cannot abide by what's going on and watching people hurt them, then basically you may have to part ways. There's a wonderful article by Richard Wasserstrom, who had both a chair in philosophy and in law, and he wrote it in the University of Michigan Law Review in early 2000s, and he wrote about the necessity for a lawyer, in that case, being a human being, a good human being, and I think it applies very much for mediators from whatever background. And in that case, he gave the example of the best client of the lawyer that decided to cut out his son if his son married someone from a different race. And the question, and because he didn't want to lose his client. And the question really is when you're there, do you ever stop being Michael or Karen or Susan or Woody? We're always who we are. So they, in a sense, are picking who we are. And it is our essence, our values, and our basic attributes that they're choosing. And if they can't use those, then maybe they can use someone else's.
You can't expect to be one person outside of the mediation room and then snap your fingers and be someone else inside the mediation room. How you think on the outside, how you treat people on the outside, who you are on the outside of the mediation room, what you believe is the same person that you bring inside the room. And so what I hear you saying, Woody, is it is about character. It is about character, and it's about authenticity and aligning what you think and what you say and how you feel with good character and living that outside the room, being a good person, right? And then bringing that person to the best of your ability inside the mediation room. We're not perfect, we're not saints, but we can strive. And if we're not striving and that's not on our radar, how do we effectively do the work when we have such a responsibility in the room? That's what I think I hear you saying.
To be able to have, I mean, we are really blessed, aren't we? With some wonderful people in our field. I think of David Hoffman. Who in the world wouldn't love David Hoffman? I have to just tell you, on his 60th birthday, do you know what David Hoffman did? David Hoffman built houses for humanity. He gives on his birthday. And if I were to look around this little room, I don't think it would be that different. It certainly isn't with Susan. She is always putting herself out to make others better and to help out. When some people say, you know, call me if you have a question, and usually our reaction might be, oh yeah, just try to get through. Susan actually calls back, emails back. And I think that's and what you're saying, Michael, is really true. It is character. And we all, we're all blessed to be surrounded by a community with very strong character. And so when we make a referral, it's with pleasure and with confidence.
Woody, that's wonderful. So we all agree that being a good person really helps us be good mediators. And so we all agree on that. But I'm very interested, Susan and Woody, on both of you as trainers. And you're both trainers and you believe in many of the core values, similar core values. But how are you different as trainers? Is there anything that you believe and maybe your fundamental beliefs about mediation, or it could be your style? What is unique about each of you that you bring to your trainings?
Susan?
You know, I would say core values. One of the reasons why Woody and I enjoy working together so much and why it's been such an incredible partnership is that core values, I think we're very similar. I would not say that we have much that's off there. In our styles of training, we have differences, but we're lucky because they're complementary differences. Woody has the absolute depth and breadth. You just heard him cite a law review article from the early 2000s from the University of Michigan Law Review, right? I mean, he does that all the time. He's been in the mediation room and in the training room and has the gift for both training, for both mediating, for both, and being a citizen of the world. I don't have that breadth. I may have practiced for 30 some odd years, but I've gotten into the training room much more recently. Maybe what I bring to the partnership, or to what makes it fun, I think, for both of us, is my absolute and utter fascination and excitement by finding new ways to do things, and to enhance what we're doing and to think outside the box of what we've always done, which if I can add, if I bring up anything, Woody gets even more excited. He's like a little kid on the first day of Hanukkah or Christmas, opening up the presents when I bring a jam board into the room. Look at, right? And it becomes like I brought him a new toy or a tool. And then immediately his mind starts working. So I wouldn't say there are differences. I would say we have some complementary areas where we have different approaches, but they're complementary.
So if you were to ask what separates our trainings from some others, not all others, but some others, I'd like to give a, and we do this all the time, we actually say this to our trainees, and we use a tennis analogy. And for those of you who play tennis or learn tennis as a either as a rank amateur or as a competitive player at all, you all know that there is a one-handed backhand, there's a two-handed backhand, and then there's the rest of us who run around our backhand to hit a forehand because our backhands aren't so good. Well, most trainers, believing that we don't want to confuse participants and trainees, will teach their favorite. They'll teach a one-handed backhand, a two-handed, or they may encourage running around the backhand because you never know what's coming back at you in the mediation room. We teach them all because we believe that people are smart enough to make their own decisions and be empowered to choose which works best for them. Because for some people, a particular modality or strategy will work, and for a second person, a different one will. I think that's open to pedagogical discussion right here as to whether that makes any sense. We think it does because we think that people will choose which way to handle. So we'll teach 2 different ways or 3 different ways of confidentiality. We will teach different ways of handling private sessions. And by allowing people to make that their own choice, it is a different experience than if we have to do it the Susan way, which is pretty good, or the Woody way, which hopefully won't get them in too much trouble. But the idea that they can make the decision that fits their personality and their value system. So if you ask what is sort of the essence of our academy, that's what we try to do.
Wow. Wow. What a way for each of you to approach that rather provocative question, potentially, of the differences between you, and so interesting to see that you're not necessarily at Mosten Guthrie teaching your way. I would imagine that inquiring minds would want to know, well, okay, you know, if you can do it this way and this way and this way, that's nice, but how do you do it? And I'm sure that you must let them know how you do it, but with an open, non-judgmental, you know, delivery, so that you can let them choose what's right for them. If that's not reason enough to take the Mosten Guthrie trainings immediately after watching this podcast, I don't know what is. That's just brilliant. Let's move on. Let's move on, because how is it that we possibly have Mosten and Guthrie and Mosten here and not talk about online mediation? Online mediation, and here's what I want to bring up. I want to bring up an article. Oh my goodness, an article that was written in March of 2019. Very, Right. Now, that's the key year. Now, I'm not talking about March of 2020. We remember March of 2020. This was March of 2019. The title of the article, "The Future is Online. Why You Need to Offer Online Dispute Resolution Services." It was published by the ABA in the Just Resolution newsletter by Susan Guthrie. Let me read, Susan, what you wrote in 2019. You wrote, "There is a belief that the mediation process loses the personal touch when the participants are remote. In online video mediations where participants' faces are the focus of the visual screen, transmission of emotions and communication are actually often enhanced. In addition, because people are remote from each other, they often find themselves more able to express themselves without concern for proximity. In my experience," you say, Susan, "people can argue as well and empathize and compromise just as easily through a screen as they can in person, sometimes even better. Sometimes even better." Bold words, even today, but I'm gonna see your sometimes, and I'm gonna raise you most of the time. Is there anything, Susan, more personal than being brought into the homes, the offices of our clients, seeing where they live, hearing their children play in the background while we mediate? They're comfortable in their space, we're comfortable in our space. I hear mediators talk about this idea that rapport, and we remember John Haynes, what makes a good mediator? Rapport, 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 right? That rapport, that trust building is somehow at a deficit online. But isn't trust built on being yourself, being authentic, what we talked about before? And can't you be just as well yourself, true to yourself, just as we are talking here, online as we are in person? Is there any difference whatsoever between the trust we're able to develop with clients online, video, versus in person? Do you feel stronger about that now than ever? And then I want to follow up with Woody, because he is a gentleman who has seen it all, and he is, gosh, the king of rapport. And so I want to hear his follow-up. Your thoughts first, Susan.
Yeah, well, and if I can point out, Woody is 100% online now, but it's so interesting, I have to say to you, that to hear that quote from that article, I had forgotten writing it. That was in the time frame where I was fully online and had been for years, and was speaking about it because I had become convinced that this was one more way we could bring what we did to more people and give more access, and in fact, enhance our lives as practitioners, because it was doing all that for me and for my clients. And so although I was very passionate about it, the usual response was a little bit of a pat on the head, of, well, that's an interesting idea of what you're doing. And certainly, you know, this is me in 2019. Colin's been, and Jim have been walking that road far, far longer. And you know, probably, I hope no one patted them on the head, but they may have experienced something of the same. And it's interesting because as we sit here today, and we look at one of the benefits of what's happened in the past 2 years, beyond just everybody having to give it a try. You know, I couldn't talk people into trying it before COVID. Now everyone had to. But the real benefit has been the experiential knowledge that many people have gained through this time and then shared. And so as much as I was talking about my experience that rapport could be established through a screen, we now have a myriad of articles and law review articles and research and psychological research and empirical studies that actually show that you can create rapport through a screen, and have given us guidelines of what we can do as practitioners to enhance that experience. So although I knew it anecdotally in my world in 2019, now the entire world knows it, and they either know it experientially, anecdotally, but we also know it scientifically. And I think that's going to take us into the next level of this. I think it was Jim Malamed, who said we've gone forward 10 years in the space of 2, or even maybe a further or a longer stretch of time, that, online dispute resolution and working together in this format is just here to stay. It's just a part of our world now. And so no longer I think we think about establishing rapport. I'm watching Carolyn, who I can see here, and she's, smiling, and I saw her nodding her head, and Carolyn's down here. Oh, my 2 Carolyns, Carolyn and Caroline, maybe. But right, I can see what they're feeling. I can get feedback from them. Neither of them have said anything. I see you leaning forward, Michael, with your hand, nodding your head. It's very much that it's become our world. I think it was, again, Jim, who said, what is the mediation room anymore? We're here. Rapport is here.
That is so interesting. And what would you say a mediator can do to enhance that trust building online? Are there any techniques or tools that you would really suggest from your experience over the years, how we can connect even more?
Yeah, I think it's an extension of what we would do in an in-person room or setting, but we have tools available to us online, and it goes back to what Michael referenced. I can see that gorgeous orchid in your background and the beautiful agates, I think they are, that you have in your background. And sometimes your cat is going to walk across your desk, and I'm going to see a little waving tail. So there's that opportunity to connect with people, because we are in the very intimate space many times of their personal lives, which as a practitioner, they came into our neutered space. We very cautiously and consciously created a very bland palette for them in our neutral rooms. And now we're walking right into what might be the chaos of their single parent life. We might walk into their, art curated room. Even their virtual background can tell us something about them and give us something to connect. So it's really taking the time to do that, to actually pay attention, to be concerned about things like, no, I'm not arguing against blurry backgrounds, Jim, because with Jim, even with his blurry background, look at that big smile on his face, and look, and the crinkles around his eyes as he smiles and tells a little joke, which, by the way, just created a little bit more rapport. So I think it's paying a lot more attention and being conscious, perhaps a little bit, in what we do when we seek to connect, and making the opportunities. That's the other thing that Woody is the, the creator and the progenitor of the PPP, the private preliminary, Woody, I'm losing a word here, preliminary preparation planning meeting. And, that's a part of our process, is we believe in meeting with the parties ahead of time separately. In an online setting, that can be even more helpful, because you have those moments of created time to create that rapport in a variety of different ways. So those are a few tips.
Jim is going to immediately seek a doctor, a surgeon, perhaps, to take care of those crinkles. I mean, now that they're noticeable online, Jim, I know you've got some good surgeons there in Eugene who can help you. Or maybe you're just au natural. That's how we build trust, authenticity. Woody, I want to follow up with you. someone says to you, Woody, look, mediators just can't connect with people nearly as well as they can online. And in that moment, you feel compelled to make the case otherwise. What do you say to a mediator who says, nah, you can't do it online the same as you can in person? What's your response?
What you all just heard from Susan is how you can do it. She, in a very modest way, modeled a sense of verbalization of what's going on in the room that we have to teach our mediators to add to their toolbox. That it isn't just be able to see it, people have to hear it. And she was right. When I saw Susan do that Jamboard, if you've never seen a Jamboard, Susan, get your Jamboard out. I mean, it's fabulous with the little stickies and whatever, and it costs nothing. And so there are a lot of techniques that make online really, really positive. Now I'm going to put something on the chat that Jim Malamed and Colin and Claire deserve our undying gratitude for. And that is Jim, and I know this because we work very closely. Actually, he did most of the work and I just sort of followed up. But he put hundreds of hours in developing the task force and the task force report. And it's in the chat right now. I can't imagine a professional in our field who considers herself a pro to do so without reading, at least in her own area, if not beyond, some of the incredible contributions that Jim was able to coordinate in the 2021 project. That, by the way, we still have it online, right, Jim? We have all of the fora there available for people to see and to learn from. And I think if we repeat it next year, it'll be even more developed. But I really agree with everything that Susan says. Last week, I had a quick trip to Boca Raton. And from San Diego to do that in 2 days, that's a lot anyway. I tried to convince the Boca Raton Collaborative Group to do it online. It was cheaper to do it online. They could get more time with me online, and they said, no, we want it in person. So they paid my honorarium, and I got on a plane and went to Boca Raton. And frankly, I enjoyed it. It was nice seeing those people outside of the squares. And I guess what I miss most were the meals. Miss having just breaking bread and joking around, because one of the things, just like on a telephone, is that when we're on Zoom, we're there to work, right? And there is something incredibly important just by having non-agenda conversation. It's why when I'm doing in-person mediations, and I had an office, I used to have a food room, a neutral food room where people would kind of break bread together, and mom and dad may not sit at the same table, but maybe their lawyers or other professionals would. And sharing pictures about their kids, talking about issues are really important. And so we may have to build that in a little more. And people, when they get on, it's the one thing that I think we haven't caught up with, is to be able, you mentioned the rapport that John Haynes talked about. Stephen Goldberg and Margaret Shaw in their study of what makes successful mediators, which you all should read. It's really incredible. They repeat the rapport, but they also talked about what Karen and Michael were discussing, and that is the trust and confidence and judgment of the mediators. And this, by the way, is distilling 25 pages or so down to two main areas. But it's worth reading, and it's worth reading to all of our trainees. And there needs to be, in my view, and I think it's gonna develop over time, where we replicate some of the personal aspects that may get lost when we're there to do business.
Woody, this is brilliant. This is brilliant, Woody. Woody, we're gonna do this. We're gonna try this. You know what we could do? We could take that idea and run with it and develop, maybe at the beginning of a mediation meeting, maybe it's a 3-question questionnaire where we ask the parties, like you're saying, something that's off topic. And maybe we start with, hey, what's your favorite childhood cereal? Can you speak to that? Can you speak to what's your favorite song? Is there a song that just really just gets you going and feeling good? Talk about getting them in the right frame of mind and disarming our clients before we begin. How about, can you each tell us just what's your favorite place to visit? Maybe we come up with 3 questions and we experiment with this, Woody. And before we get into the business of our mediation meeting online, we start with that little questionnaire. What do you think, Woody? Is it a nice manifestation of kind of what you're saying? And would you like us to report back? I'll try it in the room and report back to you how it goes.
I think maybe we all need to take a little time and reflect on how it will be congruent with our own personalities.
Wow.
Because, for example, there's no one worse than telling a joke than me. I forget the joke, let alone the punchline. So you can't ask me to do it, just like you couldn't ask me to do the music like you did, Michael. It's wonderful, but all of us have a lot of talents and sense about us that we can share. Susan does it with her incredible smile and positive energy, and that is how she does it in the training room, in the mediation room, and basically is able to motivate others. I mean, if we went around our little room here, I bet every person does it in a different way. And we need to study those things.
I know we have, go ahead, Karen. We have 5 minutes left. We're going to go to the questionnaire.
Let's go to the questions.
Let's go to the questions. Here we go. What Woody referenced earlier, these questions were made famous by James Lipton. For those of you who know Inside the Actors Studio, James Lipton interviewed the legends of the performing arts, and we are in the presence of 2 legends today of the mediation world, and we're going to ask you these same questions one at a time here. And the first question, what is your favorite word? Susan, what is your favorite word?
Glorious. I love the word glorious because it sounds like what it is, or it is what it sounds like.
Woody, your favorite word?
My favorite word that isn't my favorite, but I love saying it, is turgid.
Woody, can you repeat that? I need to write this one down.
Turgid, T-U-G-I-D. It's what it's what you hate reading through, something that's dense. You know, it's a little like James Joyce if you don't really get into his lyrics, lyrical sense. And the other, you know, is light and fanciful, but turgid's the opposite.
Wonderful. I'm going to start using that word.
Not too much.
Not too much, especially now when I'm reading mediation material written by yours truly. What is your least favorite word, Susan?
Well, I'm going to take a little poetic license, and instead of a word, I'll give you a phrase. I hate yeah, but, because it means somebody's going to argue with me. Yeah, but.
And Woody, what about you?
Quality time.
Oh, interesting.
Anytime. Wow. Susan, what turns you on?
Happy people.
Woody?
Innovation and excitement.
Susan, what turns you off?
Happy people? No. No. Ignorance.
How about you, Woody?
Judgmental preaching.
Susan, what sound or noise do you love?
A singing bell, a singing bowl,
Hmm.
a gong, the singing. It's my favorite.
Hmm. And Woody?
A 3-year-old's laughter.
Susan, what sound or noise do you hate?
Crying.
And Woody, what about you?
Fingernails on the chalkboard.
You can't do that on Zoom, can you?
Well, I don't know.
We could probably find a sound bite on YouTube, no problem.
Susan, what is your favorite curse word?
I'll use my mother, which is oh fudge.
Woody, we know you have it in you.
I'll pass on that one.
He doesn't swear.
Susan, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I wanted to be an archaeologist or a historian. I'm fascinated by history.
Interesting. And Woody, dreams do come true, but if you weren't a mediator, what profession would you like to attempt?
Be a 2nd grade teacher.
Susan, what profession would you not want to do?
Divorce attorney.
Yeah. Amen. Woody?
Be a member of Congress.
Amen.
Last but not least, Susan, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You get to stay.
You can do that by being a good person and a mediator.
I'm trying.
What about you, Woody?
Go back and try again.
Touche.
Maintaining that curiosity.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another edition of Inside the Mediation Room with Michael and Karen Orrit, and what a treat we had today. Woody, Mosten, Susan, Guthrie, we love you. We adore you. We thank you. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
You're the woman.